Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know, from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars, topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
And welcome to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. I am your host, Mark Susan. With me, of course, as always, is Jeff Malinoff. Jeff, how are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. It's almost Thanksgiving. I'm starving. I'm not going to eat until Thanksgiving dinner in a couple of days.
Yeah, so last night, of course, there was that really exciting NFL Monday Night Football game, but there was also a lot of action in the NBA, some really good games that happened last night. We're going to break those down. We're going to talk about the results and where the teams are kind of going from here. Also, in this show today, we'll be talking about the Golden State Warriors and their 3-game losing streak, the longest losing streak in the Steve Kerr era in the Golden State. We'll talk about the Lakers. Are they back on track? We'll talk about some drama, of course, staying in the Golden State, but this time with the Warriors' proximity rivals, the Sacramento Kings. Is Dave Yeager on the hot seat? What's going on down there? And we'll break that down. We'll also talk about how many teams in the Western Conference could logically make the playoffs if they played in the East. We'll also go into the Wizards drama, as we are now hearing from Adrian Wojnarowski that Bradley Beal, John Wall, and others might be on the block. A lot of drama going on in Washington, D.C. So we'll talk about all these things. Of course, we'll also break down Duke and that big three that they have there, how well they are doing, some interesting news and notes regarding that team, and the latest from the Cleveland Cavaliers, I guess, unruly shooting guard J.R. Smith, and some recent comments from him. But first, Jeff, let's get into it. Last night we had some good basketball matchups. First game that really stands out to me is the Bucks and the Nuggets. The Bucks take this one 104-98. The Bucks are now 12-4. The Nuggets fall to 10-7. And Milwaukee wins again. Giannis Antetokounmpo, 29-point game as he led his team in scoring. Bledsoe chipped in with 23, a very efficient 23, as he only took 10 field goals last night. He made 8 of them for 23 points. This Bucks team looks really good. What do you take from this game?
I'd take it that even though the Nuggets lost this game, I still consider them a team to be reckoned with in the West.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bucks have officially are, in my opinion, the best team in the East.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's kind of weird to say because, you only really see one guy, and that's Giannis. But everyone else playing around him is pretty solid, and this team just wins games. And I can't make it any more clear than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you know that the Nuggets are now 1-6 in their last 7 games? Does that concern you at all?
Concern, no. I think it doesn't matter how poor you drop, but how you bounce back. If you can't bounce back from this kind of deficit, then maybe you're not as good as we thought you were.
So here are their last 6. They lost to the Grizzlies by 2. They lost to the Nets by 2. They lost to the Bucks by 7. They lost to the Rockets by 10. They beat the Hawks. They crushed the Hawks. They lost to the Pelicans by 10, and now they lost to the Bucks by 6. Their schedule opens up a little bit here in the upcoming games as they play the Timberwolves, the Magic, the Thunder, and the Nuggets in their next 4. You're not concerned about them? Because they did have a really hot start, but now we've seen them kind of fall back to earth a little bit.
Well, that's kind of tough to say because I think every team has these, what would you call it, dry spells?
Yeah, they go ups and downs of the NBA season. Mm-hmm.
And I think we got to give them an opportunity to see if they can bounce back from this. I know it's kind of on a losing streak at the moment, but let's see how things go, and let's see how they can bounce back and who they can beat and how they can keep their momentum from going even lower.
Yeah, absolutely. The Bucks' next opponent is the Portland Trail Blazers. That's going to be a fun game, and you can watch that tomorrow, Wednesday night. Bucks and Blazers. Bucks will be hosting again. They actually have their next 3 at home as they face the Blazers, the Suns, and the Spurs in their next 3. But as for the Bucks, Jeff, as we head into the end of November, do you still see them as a top 2 team in the East?
Yes.
Toronto and Milwaukee right now lead, and then Indiana is actually in 3rd place, and then Philadelphia in 4th. So.
Well, the first 2, obviously, the Bucks and Raptors are still the top 2 in the East. But as far as the rest is concerned, it's anyone's game right now. Like, the 76ers are still trying to find a way to get Jimmy Butler more involved in the offense and just on the team's sake and get them rolling. And the Pacers are kind of on a momentum shift right now, but that could change at any moment. Mm-hmm. The only thing I know that can keep a consistent base is how good the Bucks and how good the Raptors are.
Yeah. All right. So let's move to another 2 teams in the Eastern Conference that are at the bottom of the playoff standings right now, but they would actually be in the playoffs if it started today. And that, of course, is the Charlotte Hornets. They win against the Boston Celtics 117-112. Kemba Walker is just on fire right now. He scores 43. The Hornets, they come back from behind. They win 117-112. Talk to me what you are seeing from Kemba Walker.
He's putting the team on his back. I think that's pretty clear. But
MVP right now, right? Like if it was today, would he win the MVP?
See, that's a tough one because there's a lot of other great players at the moment. But you know what? I wouldn't be completely shocked if that's the case.
He only took 25 attempts. Again, another efficient night for Kemba. So he's scoring a lot of points, but he's not, shooting 40 times. 25 attempts, 43 points. You'll take that every single time. So the Hornets win. The Celtics are still struggling. They're not finding their rhythm yet. And at this point, we saw Gordon Hayward play off the bench yesterday, 31 minutes. He only scored 4 points, Jeff, 1 of 6, 0 for 3 from 3, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. I know that you said earlier, in a podcast before that we need to take our time, wait on him. Has your opinion changed, or are you starting to worry about him?
He's had a couple good games, but honestly, he's had some more disappointing games, huh?
Yeah, I mean, he has struggled mightily this year. He's averaging, 9 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. But he's a max contract type player. So, I mean, for a guy like Gordon Hayward, I'm sure they were expecting like a 20-9, maybe 29-4, something like that.
Again, he is coming off one of those gruesome injuries you can have.
Sure.
So, I don't know.
But
can we get to the All-Star break and go and then say our piece?
Yeah, absolutely. I am just a little bit concerned. I know it's been a year now, but... Yeah. Anyways, let's move out to the West.
It's also an injury that, it's also a mental thing also. But I'll leave it at that.
Speaking of another team that is having some struggles early on, the Spurs, they lose to the New Orleans Pelicans 140-126. Again, the Spurs, they're just very up and down, and they give up 140 points last night. Anthony Davis led the way with 29. And then Holiday and Moore pitched in 21 and 24 respectively. 21 off the bench for Randall. And as you mentioned in our sports podcast before, a triple-double from Julius Randle off the bench in 25 minutes. That's impressive.
And you said this on our previous podcast. Do you think the Lakers are missing him? And I say, probably.
Yeah, I mean, 21, 14, and 10, that's getting it done. 25 minutes. Can you think about that for a minute? In 25 minutes, he had 21 points, 14 rebounds. He was almost averaging, like a point a minute? Almost
a point a minute. That's
Yeah,
I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but that is a lot.
That is a lot. That is absolutely a lot. But not only that, rebounding and assisting. I mean, he led the Pelicans in assists. You're talking about a power forward who played 25 minutes last night. So, yeah. Anyways, let's take a look at the Spurs. DeRozan, 21 points on 19 shots. Again, no three-pointers from DeRozan. Forbes, starting at point guard, 20 points, 1 assist. What do you make of the Spurs right now? Do you think that we are seeing them struggle, but ultimately they'll figure it out and be a playoff team?
I mean, it is possible. Again, how early are we in this season? Like, we're in the infancy, and any kind of run can change momentum on a dime. And we saw that with the Nuggets, and we could see this with this team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know, though. The Nuggets seem to be a more well-rounded team, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and you got to be more well-rounded when you're in the West.
Well, Marcus Aldridge had 7 points last night, 10 rebounds. He only attempted 11 shots.
He had a pretty weak game, in my opinion, but I think he's coming off a free agent year, correct?
He is an impending free agent, yes.
And he's going to be a hot free agent once he's in the market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a solid player. He had an off night last night, but playing against an Anthony Davis team, sometimes you'll have your struggles. I mean, Anthony Davis is a pretty darn good defender. So, yeah. All right. So why don't we move on? Let's see here. We already talked about that. How about the Kings and the Thunder? The Kings win 117-113. It was Russell Westbrook's first game back. He's missed 6 games. He had an ankle injury. Plus, his twins were born, so he missed some time to go handle that. Congratulations to Russell Westbrook.
However, that's understandable.
Absolutely. However, they suffer a loss in his first game back. The Thunder are now 10-6. The Kings improved to 9-8. What do you make of that game last night? 117-113 Sacramento.
I think Sacramento, since they're having a winning record, is very unusual for them, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a cool momentum shift for them because they have been kind of always on the basement. Well, not always. They lived in the basement for the last 10 years. And seeing them, like...
The Warriors' basement?
Yeah. And seeing them rise from the grave and rise from this...
Are you, writing a book?
Yes. And they rise from the ashes of the... Like, what did Lord of the Rings...
You've just been impressed with their early season.
Absolutely. I think everyone has. I think everyone didn't expect them to even be good this year. We know a guy that was said, they can only get less than 20 wins. We know a guy that said that. And
so what do you think of the drama regarding Dave Yeager? We heard a report that the Kings upper management were maybe not happy with his minutes allocation to some of the younger players, and that he may or may not be on the hot seat. What do you think about that and all these rumors?
I think the rumor is that he's not playing his rookie enough. He's not playing Bagley enough. But Bagley just had a double-double. So I'm not sure. I know he's coming off the bench, but for rookies, you don't want to throw him into the fire right away. You got to give him time to marinate. You got to give him some time to be on the bench and observe.
I think it just depends on the team too, right? The Suns are playing Ayton. Okay, that's understandable. The Mavericks are playing Doncic. That's understandable. But
the Kings are winning. Something's working in Sacramento. And why are you going to fire him if something's working? It's like, thanks for fixing my pipes, plumber. I'm not going to pay you, though.
You make a good point. They've been winning games. They've been competitive even in their losses. And Bagley and Giles in particular, I think these are the two players that are probably the ones that you look at when you hear not getting enough minutes. But they've been behind Willie Cauley-Stein, who's been playing very well for the Kings. And then Bielitsa, who's a veteran player. I get it. Now, Bielitsa is not your future. Bagley is. But Bielitsa has had some really good games for them this year. So, ultimately, Bagley played 26 minutes last night, and he played in the crunch time. Do you think that this is all smoke, though, with the Dave Yeager stuff? Or do you think that there's actual truth to this?
It's hard to tell, because the Kings have done stuff like this before where they...
It's one of those things where you would say that you wouldn't believe it, but since it's the Kings, you do believe it, right? The
Kings have done some pretty questionable things.
It's very Kingsy, right?
In the past. Oh, absolutely. And this is a thing you just cannot trust. You can expect the unexpected when it comes to Sacramento, for sure.
All right, so let's move out east. Indiana Pacers, they're 11-6. They improved to 11-6 with last night's win, 121-94. The Utah Jazz get smoked again, Jeff. They're kind of just been one of the most disappointing teams this year. But on the other side, the Pacers have been really good. I mean, 11-6. Right now, they find themselves in the top 4 of the Eastern Conference. What do you take from the Pacers in this game or this season so far?
An unexpected start, an unexpected hot start for sure. And the East is a place where you can totally take advantage of how weak it is. All due respect to everyone in the East, but I think it's coming to the fact that this Pacers team can make a dent when it comes to playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's the East. If you get a top 4 seed, you should definitely win your first round matchup. Absolutely. The Pacers have been a really well-rounded team so far this season. We look at last night, for example. I think last night is a good indication of their well-rounded season so far. You have 6 players in double figures. Young, 12, Bogdanovich, 21, Turner, 12, Sabonis, 19, McDermott, 12, Holiday, 19. And then you got a guy like Collison, Evans, right on the brink with 9 points and 8 points respectively. Indiana's been a very good story so far. But, Jeff, on the flip side, the Utah Jazz, what's going on with them? They're 8-9. You know, they're expected to be a top 3, top 4 team in the West. Some people had them higher, like myself. I had them as the second best team in the Western Conference behind the Warriors. What's going on with this team? What do you make of them?
That's a different thing because this is another team that came almost out of nowhere to me. No, this feel like a team that came out of nowhere because I felt like this team would be like middle of the pack.
Jazz?
Yeah, still because they came off a great season, no doubt, but this team, like everyone's like, oh, this team can bounce back, and then I was starting to get on the bandwagon as soon as the season started. I got on the bandwagon. And then they go back to where I thought they were going to be, in the middle of the pack.
The thing is with them is that last year when they had Rudy Gobert in the lineup, they had an incredible record. They were, I think, the second best record in the NBA when Rudy Gobert played. They struggled when he was out of the lineup. He's been healthy this year, but they've struggled. So it goes against the logic, right? Like, he's been healthy and they've been bad. Usually when he's healthy, they're good. But Donovan Mitchell, 7 points last night. He's something's going on with him. He seems to be off. I don't know if he's just in a slump, but
do you think it's he was a rookie last year, correct?
Well, yeah, and even in the game before he scored 35 points, he wasn't happy about it because he had no assists. And
do you think it's like a sophomore slump of some kind?
It might be. Rubio actually had a really good game last night, 28 points for the Jazz, but again, they scored 94 points. They're blown out again. They just lost the game by 50 points. They lose this one by 27. It just seems like their confidence is a little bit shaken at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's just there's something going on, definitely.
So let's take a quick break. When we come back, we got a few more games to get through, some teams to talk about, and also we'll talk about the Golden State Warriors. They were in action last night, but last time we had our podcast, they have lost a couple more games since then. So we'll discuss that. We'll break that down. We'll do that right after this.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, of course, in the GSMC Podcast Network. Make sure to check out the Podcast Network because we do other sports. Me and Jeff, we're here with football every day, sports show, soccer, baseball, fantasy football, all of that in addition to basketball, of course. So, Jeff, I want to continue on with some of those games that happened last night, but before I get into it, man, I'm really, really feeling Thanksgiving this year. I'm getting very hungry. We're 2 days away. But, man, are you excited or what?
This is my second favorite holiday to Christmas for obvious reasons. But I hate when people forget about Christmas. So
I like it more than Christmas. I'll tell you why.
Food-wise, yes.
Can I tell you why?
Why?
It's like Christmas. You got food, you have family, you're hanging out, but without the anxiety of gifts, lines, shopping, that kind of stuff. So that's why I prefer it. But you like Christmas a little bit more?
Yeah, because I get to see some family I don't see in a while, and I get this. I love the how you wake up in the morning and you're just all drinking coffee and not even like opening the presents yet, just like
in your PJs.
Yeah, just an awesome feeling.
Well, you know what? It might feel like Christmas for the Memphis Grizzlies. They win again last night. They win 98-88. Memphis Grizzlies are 11-5. Did you see that coming?
No, actually, I didn't.
I mean, we knew that Conley and Gasol would be back, but man, this team has been on a roll. You've been impressed with them so far?
Oh, absolutely. I think everybody has. Who hasn't, right?
Would you believe if I told you that the Memphis Grizzlies have a better record percentage-wise than the Golden State Warriors?
I would call you crazy. I would call you're mentally insane, and I must have to call the insane asylum and get you back in there.
Well, I wouldn't be wrong, and I'd have to explain that. Take a look at the standings because it's actually true. The Memphis Grizzlies, 11-5, are the current 3 seed in the Western Conference. How about the Mavericks though? They lose. They're 7-9. They've had a pretty decent season though, wouldn't you say?
Yes, absolutely. There's consistency with them. I can't put my finger on it, but there's something working there.
Luka Doncic has been nice. The rookie had 15 points, 10 rebounds. He had a tough shooting night last night. He took 20 attempts, which is a lot to score 15 points. But he's been normally efficient for them. Obviously, he's young. He's going to have some off games. Have you been impressed with his game?
Oh, absolutely. Definitely a shoe-in for, not a shoe-in, but definitely a contender for Rookie of the Year. A big contender.
Would you say he's a front runner right now?
Yeah, I would have to say so. Consistently based, yes. Honestly, Marvin Bagley III is also putting his hat in there.
Mm-hmm. Ayton, Doncic, of course. Trae Young, too, has had some good games. And as we know, Trae Young has that green light. I mean, he plays on a team where he's going to be able to shoot as many times as he wants. He has the ball in his hands a lot. But speaking of Trae Young, Jeff, the Hawks, they lose last night, 119-127 to the Clippers. But Trae Young, 25 points, 17 assists.
That's a lot of assists.
Yeah, 25 points, 17 assists for Trae Young. So his numbers are going to be big this year.
Well, I think he's starting to figure out that he can't have a great shooting game every single night. Like, he's been shooting at nausea almost, and he's figuring out that maybe I should pass the ball more. I think he's trying to figure out what his game should be, and he's figuring out pretty well.
The Clippers, though, they get the win, 127-119. They're now 11-5. They are another team that percentage points have a better record than the Golden State Warriors. How impressed are you by the Clippers season thus far?
I'm pleasantly surprised because I think everyone thought they were at the bottom of the West. And honestly, they're above the Lakers, so it's almost a parallel universe.
Yeah, I agree. I saw them being, maybe 11th in the West or so. I thought they'd have a tough down year. But man, Tobias Harris, 24 points, 8 rebounds last night. They got incredible production off the bench. Scott, 18. Harrell, 25. Bojan, 12. Wallace, 2. Lou Williams, 16. That's all off the bench last night. So the bench actually outscored their starters. Do you think the Clippers will be able to keep this up?
Clippers keeping this up, that is to be determined. Because as deeper this season goes, we see who the real guys are and who the phonies are.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, let's talk about the 76ers, a team. Some people think that they're one of the contenders in the East. They've had, a tough start. They're getting back on track. They're 12-7. They won last night, 119-114. Joel Embiid had 33 points and 17 rebounds. I think he made it a point last night to really show DeAndre Ayton what it's like to play in the NBA. And, Ayton had a decent game, 17 points, 9 boards, but obviously Embiid wins that head-to-head matchup. Do you think the Sixers are on the right track now that they have Jimmy Butler?
well, this is the part of the series where part of the trade where this is a put up or shut up time, where they need to be at least make a deep playoff run with this, or this season's a bust. This is championship or bust time now with Jimmy Butler.
Butler had 16 points in 32 minutes. He only attempted 9 shots. But last night, the Sixers were definitely led by Embiid.
Did you see him and Allen Iverson together?
I did not.
They hugged and they swapped. They actually, in the locker room, they swapped jerseys and signed each other's jerseys like they do in the NFL. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Jimmy Butler, as he acclimates more to the 76ers, I think his role will grow. As I mentioned, he only attempted 9 shots last night, 3 rebounds, 1 assist. But yeah, I mean, he's obviously going to have to be the difference maker for that team if they're going to go far. But in terms of last night, the last game that I like to talk about is the Cavaliers and the Pistons. Detroit at 8-6, they win 113-102. The Cavaliers are now 2-13. Jeff, are they the worst team in the NBA?
Isn't that a question?
Is it a question, or is it pretty obvious?
Well, I mean, the Hawks are just as bad.
Are they?
The record speaks for itself.
I mean, Cleveland is at 2-13. The Hawks are at 3-14. So you have a point, but at least the Hawks have Trae Young, right?
Yeah, true, but he's inconsistent at some points in his.
Hawks have also lost 8 in a row, which is pretty crazy. Okay, so you'd say it's close?
Yeah, I would say it's close. The record speaks for themselves.
Yeah. As for the Pistons, they're 8-6. The tough 10-game stretches, they're 4-6 in their last 10, but they still look like a playoff team to me in the Eastern Conference. Would you agree with that?
A team in the Eastern Conference? Yeah.
They're the 5th seed right now.
The thing is, the East is so not as good as the West. Any team can make the playoffs in that conference, no? Would you agree with that? Except for maybe Cleveland?
Yeah, I mean, well, the Hawks too, right? The Hawks and the Cavs are probably out. But would you say that every team in the Western Conference could make the playoffs if they were playing in the East?
Yeah, I definitely
Even
would
the
say.
Suns?
If the Suns had the schedule of the East, then I would say so.
I think so.
Because
really
the schedule
do.
of the East is way easier than the schedule of the West. I'm sorry, it is.
Teams like Houston, Utah, San Antonio, Sacramento, those are all on the outside looking in the West. I think they'd all be in the playoffs in the East.
Oh, 100%.
So let's move on to the Golden State Warriors. They have not been playing well. They're on a 3-game losing streak. That is the longest losing streak in the Steve Kerr era. They lose to the Rockets 107-86, the Mavericks 112-109, and the Spurs 104-92. They go winless in the Texas Triangle. Is there cause for concern with the Golden State Warriors right now?
I love that Texas Triangle. Clever. Losing, beating your, they've never done this before, losing this many games in a row. I would say, there's something different in this season compared to the others. 100%.
We know about the drama. We know about Draymond and Durant getting into it. And Curry's been injured, which I think is a bigger deal than all of this stuff. But do you think that the drama in the locker room could affect them from winning the championship this year? Because there's certainly a rift.
Wouldn't that be nice for everyone else in the NBA?
I mean, there's certainly a rift in this locker room. And I think it stems, I don't think it's just between two people. I think Draymond's kind of the voice of the Warriors, and Durant is I don't know. He's rubbing people the wrong way. I think it's not just Draymond. I think it's others. So, what do you think about that?
This whole Draymond KD feud thing, like you think it should it's blown out of proportion because it's the Golden State Warriors and because everyone wants friction to happen between them and bad things because they've been so good for so long. But I think it's still like once they get to the playoffs, it's a whole different story with the whole drama instance if it even continues to that long. But I still think that this Warriors team is still like a championship favorite, and teams are just going to have to somehow pull off a miracle to beat them when it comes to playoff contention and playoff spots. Mm-hmm. I still think they're going to get the first seed.
Durant and Klay Thompson have been weirdly in a slump, and at the same time too. The Warriors only scored 92 points against the Spurs. They only scored 86 against the Rockets. So I think we'll see their scoring go on an uptick. They play the Thunder in their next game, and that's tomorrow. What do you see happening in this game? The Thunder have been playing well, albeit they lost last night to Sacramento. Do you think the Thunder might get the Warriors tomorrow because of maybe the timing? The Warriors aren't playing that great.
It's probably the best time to take advantage of the Warriors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like this is probably the weakest the Warriors have been in the last 4 years.
The Warriors' next 3 games are the Thunder, the Blazers, and the Kings.
Thunder, Blazers, and the Kings.
And the Blazers and the Kings are back-to-backs.
I think they can beat the Thunder. They could probably beat the Kings, but I feel like the Kings will give them a handful more than people think. But that's just my opinion.
The Kings game will be the second night of a back-to-back for the Warriors, but not a back-to-back
and
for the Kings.
The Kings play a high, fast pace, as Popovich has said. So definitely something to think about, 100%. Mm-hmm. And then you got the Trailblazers, the best team in the West at the moment. So I would definitely put them in a what's the word I'm looking for? I would definitely put them in a
favorable matchup. Or
yes.
Okay. Cool.
That's the word I was looking for.
Let's go to a break. When we return, let's talk about the Lakers and see if they're back on track or if we still need to see more. Also, we'll talk about the Wizards drama because things are not going well in Washington, D.C. at the moment for the Wizards. Bradley Beal, John Wall, sounds like they might be on the trade block, but we'll discuss those things in detail when we come back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. We just broke down the Warriors and their drama. We discussed the action across the NBA in the last 24 hours and how each team's outlook appears today, if there is a difference from the days past. So, we've broken down those things.
Days of Future Past?
Yeah, what is this, X-Men?
X-Men.
I got to ask you, we already talked about the Western Conference and if all the teams would be playoff contenders in the East, and I think we agreed that they all would. What teams in the East would be in the playoffs in the West? Milwaukee, Toronto,
Indiana?
But after Milwaukee and Toronto, are you confident in any other team?
God, no. All due respect, but no.
It is an interesting thing to think about.
It's not just a no, it's a, oh, heck no.
Has as good as Indiana has been, I'm not so sure that they'd have a winning record if they were in the West at this point. Maybe they
I would agree with you.
Not that they're a bad team, but we just know like a team like the Spurs are 500 and not in the current playoff standings in the West. So
we are a broken record when it comes to the West are superior to the East.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we all knew that, but it just seems like it's even worse.
It's obvious. It's extremely obvious now.
Yeah.
Because the West got better.
So, speaking of a team in the East that's not doing so well, the Washington Wizards. Drama is alive and well in the nation's capital. Bradley Beal, John Wall, we are now hearing that they are actually on the trade block. Their team, is looking to move some players. John Wall had just been fined by the organization for a verbal barrage against Coach Scott Brooks that included a lot of
swearing.
A lot of words. Obviously, I mean, you have to say some mean things to get fined, right? So,
especially when you use the F word at your coach.
So things are not
Call me crazy.
So well.
That's a big no-no. I don't care what. I mean, who else? What else would have happened? I mean, choked out his coach. I mean, what lunatic would do that? I mean,
Latrell Sprewell.
Oh, right.
So I got to ask you: will John Wall or Bradley Beal be traded? I guess before the deadline.
Bradley Beal will be the most likely to get traded out of the two if that happens, because John Wall's contract is so massive that I don't see another team taking that contract.
That's a good thing you mentioned his contract. And the contract that you're referring to is his Supermax extension that kicks in next offseason. So it hasn't even started yet, but he will earn, I think it's 38, 41, 44, and 47 million over the next 4 years. It's about that.
God, isn't the life good when you play a sport and you get paid $38 million and then $40 million and then $44 million? You can literally retire after the third season and never have to work again.
The Wizards have found themselves, though, in such a tough predicament, Jeff, because this deal has not even kicked in. This extension has not kicked in, and yet they're looking to move him. But is there a team out there that'd be willing to take on that type of salary? For
crazy people,
a 28-year-old point guard who may or may not be a top 10 point guard anymore?
God, what team would be crazy enough to take a contract desperately trying to win?
And what team would give...
New York, I could see the Knicks doing it.
Maybe so, but then they'd have to give back pretty much like $40 million in cap back.
They've done stuff like this before, though.
Oh, I agree.
I'm saying the most logical or the most common place to go in this situation, who's going to do this, would have to be the Knicks. Maybe the Nets.
I could see the Knicks trying to do this and then because they're trying to lure Kevin Durant there in the offseason. So
I don't think they're going to get Kevin Durant.
Well, they could get at least one big name player, Kawhi, Durant, one of those players, and a guy like John Wall might help.
I mean, maybe, but
what if the Knicks had John Wall, Kristaps Porzingis coming back, and then Durant? That team would be interesting.
So you see Durant not going back to the Warriors?
I don't think
100%?
Durant stays with the Warriors. I don't think so. I'd be shocked at this point.
I'm going to say this. Whoever wins the NBA title gets Kevin Durant.
No, God. Well, the Warriors are probably going to win.
Exactly.
They can't pay him and Clay, though. That's the thing.
Who are you paying, though? Clay or Kevin? Clay. Definitely Clay.
I think I'm paying Clay. I know Durant's
well,
better.
It's like that's their guy they drafted. That's their guy.
You're right.
Kevin Durant's just the guy that just joined onto the ship. Like, it's like when your ship finds treasure, and then a guy decides to go, "Hey, I'm going to be part of your crew now. Can I be part of your crew, please, pretty please?"
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how that went.
So the Wizards are just in this purgatory right now, where they're not bad enough, but it's hard for them to tank unless they sell off some of these players. But these players are very expensive. Bradley Beal's making $27 million a year. I mean, I don't know who's going to go get these guys. We know how difficult it is in the NBA to trade because of the salary restrictions. You have the salary cap. You know, what team is looking to just add $28 million or $40 million to their payroll for two players that aren't necessarily elite caliber NBA players, championship level players. We know the Wizards have struggled in the playoffs with these two guys. I don't really know if another team would see something else that would make them believe, okay, we have to get one of these players to push us over the top. So I don't know. I think it's going to be incredibly difficult. Do you think that the Wizards will have to trade a first-round pick with John Wall to get rid of that contract to create this cap space?
That seems like too much to give up, doesn't it? Like a first-round pick and arguably your best player.
Yeah, but if they want to have $45 million in flexible cap space, it might be the price they have to pay, right?
Yeah, I guess so. But what at what cost?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a kind of a big cost. That's pretty expensive, if you ask me.
Yeah, man, I'm trying to think. I thought
I don't think there's any way out of this contract.
I think you brought up the Knicks, and that was interesting. That made me think. I don't think there's a team in the West that would be able to want or
there's
go
not
get
a team
John
that
Wall.
wants to. No, there wouldn't be a team that would want to do that.
So let's move on to another team in the East has a little bit of drama. J.R. Smith and the Cleveland Cavaliers. J.R. Smith has publicly asked to be traded. He is now away from the team. He has left the team, according to Brian Windhorst. This morning, he has left the team. J.R. Smith said that he doesn't want to be bought out because he doesn't want to have his legacy have that on there with Cleveland. But he wants
What
to be
does that
traded.
even mean?
I don't know. Is that silly? I feel like that's silly. He says he
It's
doesn't
silly.
want to take a buyout.
No, you're right. It's silly.
He says he doesn't want to take a buyout because it'll affect his legacy. But what's the
What
difference?
legacy? You have a legacy of taking off your shirt. Like, I don't
His
understand.
legacy is not putting the ball in the hoop when there's like
and in
2
the NBA
seconds.
Finals of Game 1, yeah, he was
LeBron
kind of
going like this.
Yeah, and the picture of him looking at LeBron while LeBron looks befuddled, that's his legacy. Or his time with Denver, or his time with New York, or his time with any other team he's played with. I don't know.
So J.R. Smith said, I don't think the goal is to win.
I'm not going to lie. He doesn't have a legacy, in my opinion.
He said, I don't think the goal is to win. The goal isn't to go out there and try to get as many wins as you can. I think the goal is to develop and to lose to get lottery picks. I think that was always the plan. Is he wrong?
No, he's not wrong. That's what they basically have said. Like, Zion is the guy they want.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with what he's... I mean, there's nothing wrong in terms of factually with what he said. I think he's kind of going about this the wrong way, but... I mean, yeah, the Cavaliers are trying to lose. I don't think anybody is going to sit there and say otherwise. I mean, this team is looking to get that number 1 pick, draft Zion Williamson, to change the culture there. They're looking for Zion to be the guy that replaces LeBron as the franchise player and a player that they can move forward with in upcoming years. So there's nothing wrong with what he said there, but do you think that J.R. Smith will get traded? He's making $14 million. Do you think that there's a team that wants J.R. Smith for $14 million?
No.
What would he
there's
add?
no way.
I mean, what would he really add? Like, he falls in love with his three-point shot too often, I feel like.
And it's not even that good anymore. He's kind of struggling from threes.
Yeah, he's an older player. Seems like a problem. Maybe a buyout will happen. I think that's the most likely scenario. But talking about buyouts, Carmelo Anthony, we know that he just got bought out. He's still a free agent.
And his legacy's damn. No, I'm kidding. I don't know where he goes.
Yeah, right?
His agents are scrambling to find him a place, but I don't know where he goes.
We've talked about this. It's hard to tell where he will land. Of course, we hear the Lakers. That's obvious, right? LeBron's there.
Yeah.
Do you think that he would provide the Lakers anything of value?
I don't see him going to the Lakers, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. Because
I just bring him up because they're the obvious rumor, right? Like it's going to the Lakers.
I think that's just I think that's every time there's going to be a free agent, they're going to say they're going to the Lakers.
Yeah, it's lazy, right?
Yeah.
It's just a lazy thing to say. Would you be shocked though if he landed with them?
I honestly would be a little sorry because LeBron and him play the same position.
Yeah, and what does he really do? The Lakers need 3-point shooting. He's a volume shooter, but he's not a 3-point shooter, right?
Well, I think everyone has said this, and I'm kind of agreeing with him. He doesn't have it anymore. He's kind of lost.
It's been a while, I think, that he's had it, in my opinion, but
yeah, he's kind of lost it.
I feel like he might be able to add something to a team, but it's not them, and it's probably not a team in the West again. Seems like an Eastern Conference team would look to him maybe to provide some scoring, but we'll see. Anyways, let's go to a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little college basketball. Actually, we'll just talk about Duke, but we'll do that and news and notes around the college and also the NBA when we return.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
And welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. We just broke down kind of the Wizards drama and what's going on there. Maybe some possible trades. We talked about J.R. Smith, too, and the Cleveland Cavaliers and how that relationship seems to be coming to an end. Why don't we shift our focus to college basketball for a moment and talk about a relationship that is going very well, and that's the relationship between the three freshmen at Duke with that university, because these guys are just on a mission. We got Zion Williamson, JT Barrett, and Cam Reddish. These three guys, freshmen. They might be the number 1, number 2, number 3 picks in the upcoming draft. Jeff, how impressive have these three been at the college level?
It's almost unfair. It's almost like there's Duke and then there's everybody else.
Do you know that these three guys have outscored all their opponents combined? 276 to 271 so far.
That's
just those three.
That's unfair. That's too good. There's something wrong there.
It's an insane recruiting class put together by Coach K. Krzyzewski at Duke. It seems like they're obviously the front runner. I don't know how this team loses when it counts. That'll be, it'll be something to see. That's for sure. But man, these guys continue not just to score, but they put on a show. I mean, Zion's athleticism. I mean, we've seen, the shooting of Reddish was on display last night. Barrett kind of does it all for this team. It's something to behold. Who's going to take down this team? I couldn't tell you. It looks like that's not going to happen anytime soon. But do you know that Duke, if these three players are all picked in the top 10, they'll be the second team in the last 50 years with 3 picks in the top 10?
That's impressive, to say the least.
Yeah, the other school to do it was Florida in 2007. Do you remember any of the players from that team? They had the number 3 pick taken in that draft, the number 7, and the number 9.
I do not. Can you remind me?
One is a current Boston Celtic.
Can I guess Kyrie? No, wait, he's number 1. Duh, I'm an idiot. No. Who?
Al Horford.
Oh, right. I forgot about him.
The number 7 pick was Corey Brewer. And the number 9 pick, I think, is the person that people identify that Florida team with the most. A center in the NBA. He played for the Bulls for a while. A lot of hair. He once had a freak out.
I know who it is. Jakeem Noah.
Yes, he had a freak out in Arco Arena where he got ejected and pretty much cursed out everybody in his sight. That was a pretty epic meltdown. One of the most memorable ones in NBA history. Yes, Joakim Noah. He was picked number 9. So, are these 3 players going to be picked?
Honestly, wait, hold on. He honestly reminds me that he looks like that one guy. Remember that guy from Gonzaga that cried during the Final Four against, or maybe Sweet 16 against UCLA, where they lost the comeback and he started crying on the court?
Yeah, what was that guy's name? The guy who got picked by the Lakers.
He got picked up by the Lakers. He got drafted by Charlotte.
Yeah,
they were the Bobcats at the time. That was when they had the new NBA basketball. Do you remember that weird looking basketball they had? Different material and all that. Mm-hmm. It wasn't leather. It was
Adam Morrison.
Cellophane.
Adam Morrison.
That's him. Yeah, the crybaby. Right.
I forgot about him. Remember, he was like the toast of the town for a while. Do you think we'll see these 3 players go in the first 3 picks of the draft? Reddish, Barrett, and Zion.
Reddish, Barrett, and Zion. I can see these teams. I can see, honestly, these guys going 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, they could. I mean,
I think Zion is almost a guaranteed first.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Barrett, I can see it second.
Mm-hmm. And then Reddish, he's a deadly shooter too.
I can see him in top 5. But I think Barrett and Zion are better. All due respect to him, of course.
Yeah, at this point, though, it's kind of like splitting hairs, right? Zion's going to be the one that gets all the headlines. He makes all the highlight plays.
The fancy plays, yeah.
Yeah, the big dunks, the incredible athleticism. I mean, the kid is 285 pounds, and he's like a freight train. Like, he runs up and down the court, and there's no one getting in his way.
How on earth does that man 285 pounds?
So this last year, Penny Hardaway took over the coaching duties at Memphis for college. And he has landed the number 1 recruit in the country. James Wiseman, the number 1 ranked prospect. He committed to Memphis over Kentucky. And he was coached by Penny Hardaway previously in high school. So this is a big get for Penny Hardaway he has a career now in coaching. We know that he's coached a lot of elite youth talent, but now he makes his way into college. So this year, the number 1 recruit won't be going to Duke. He'll actually be going to Memphis. And James Wiseman, the number 1 ranked prospect in the 2019 class, he's a 7-foot player from East High School in Tennessee. This kid, I mean, he's being talked about, in the same kind of conversation as some of these other great athletes. 7'6" wingspan. He looks like he's going to be a real player at the next level and possibly in the NBA. So big get there for Memphis as they look to get back into maybe one of the elite teams in the NCAA once again.
Keyword maybe.
Yeah, and I wanted to shift back for a moment to the NBA and talk about Markelle Fultz. He's been really struggling.
Do you think he's a bust? Oh, you gonna ask me that?
Yeah. What do you think? Do you think he's a bust? I mean, now he's out again. Like he's having a shoulder problem. He's gonna see a shoulder specialist. We know that he had problems with his arm last year with his shooting motion. Man, what do you think about this?
Well, when he first was being drafted out of Washington, I had my skeptics. I thought there were better players in this draft than him. And I turned out to be right, honestly. Mm-hmm. So I'm very skeptical. I've been skeptical, and I think he is a bust. Hate to say it, but I think he is a major bust.
His shoulder injury sounds really odd. He was diagnosed with a scapular imbalance. He couldn't shoot, but from beyond 15 feet until very recently. They talked about his changing his shot. Man, this doesn't sound good, man. I think they do have buyer's remorse. They could have had Tatum.
They could have had a lot of. That was a deep class,
and they traded up for Fultz. Remember, they gave away that pick, the Sacramento Kings pick, which is now Boston's. Man, Fultz recently he's been replaced by T.J. McConnell as the backup point guard. He's not even the backup right now. Like, he's not even the sixth man, and you have to wonder with his injury, with his confidence, when he'll get it back. Guys, we've seen guys like Jason Tatum, De'Aaron Fox. We've seen Donovan Mitchell really, really play well. Even Alonzo Ball, even though he's struggled, he's been better than Fultz. I mean, he's actually played. Fultz has only played 14 games last year.
Yeah, he hasn't played much. He is a very like usually you're like, oh, this guy, let's see what he can do. Well, we haven't even got to see what he can really do. He hasn't played a full season. I don't think he'll ever play a full season because he's so injury prone. Like, I've never seen someone this injury prone since like Greg Oden.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess we'll see what happens, but you have to wonder if they really missed on this pick, and we won't know for at least another year or two. But it's definitely not looking good, and I would be very concerned if I was a Sixers fan. It just looks like it was a wasted opportunity. And, they could really use a player right now that's a difference maker. This team is good. Embiid is good. They have Jimmy Butler. They have other players, but, man, if they could only get something, in addition to Simmons as well, if they could get something else, it would really be a boost. But we'll see if he comes back. Anyways, Jeff, I think we're done here today, man.
I think we are done. Too. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody.
Have a great Thanksgiving.
Tomorrow we have a special show, though.
Yes. Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. And we will not tell you what it is because it's a surprise.
So join us then.
Yes.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.